On today's episode of Gathering the Kings.
The folks that have been successful that are really making positive impact, they're all values driven, right? To the core, whether it's how they treat their employees, whether it's the impact they have on the environment or socially or politically or whatever, there's always this positive impact that's driving them. And then they have success too, right? It's inspiring to people to have someone that's driven based on values, right? No one wants a bad guy leading, right?
What's up, everybody? I'm Chaz Wolfe, Gathering the Kings podcast, coming back to you here today with another king on the stage. My brother, only 8 letters in his name, Alex Tuck. How we doing, man?
Doing great, Chaz. Thanks for having me on the show.
I am just thankful for simple gentlemen like you. For the listener's sake, we were just going over, the pre-show semantics, and he's like, "Yeah, man, super easy name. You can't mess it up. It's only 8 letters." Well, here we are. Thanks for making it easy for me. Alex, tell us what kind of business that you got, brother.
I run a project management consultancy, simple enough, called Tuck Consulting Group. We have about 60 project managers distributed across the US, 100% remote. And we help small businesses do their projects better. And
Love it.
so we work in 4 different verticals: healthcare, IT professional services, nonprofit, and digital product. And been having a lot of fun helping small businesses.
You have organized a bunch of people who help other people get organized, it sounds like.
That's exactly right. It's very meta, Chaz.
Yeah, exactly, man. I feel like I'm in the Matrix. Like, who's organizing who here? Okay,
but but it's interesting though. It's actually pretty hard to do, right? And our team's pretty passionate about it, and you'd be surprised how easy things are if you can get them all lined up and in order. So
Well, I love that. That's the benefit, right? The benefit of
yeah,
hiring your company is that, right? But to get there, it's not like it's easy per se. There's an actual formula, but there
yeah,
are some major benefits. It's funny as we kind of just this piece of like that it's not that difficult or not that easy. I mean, I've had some people in our mastermind group get a little bit behind the scenes, especially ones that have been in other groups, and they're like, "Bro, first off, I've been in other groups, and so I know the value that you bring. First, like just well done. Number two, dude, there's a lot of work that goes behind all this."
oh yeah,
Even the show,
oh yeah,
So, okay, you're helping people get organized, but really what I heard you say we have to dive into immediately. And I'm always a big, like, kind of a emotion purpose guy first, but I'm going to circle back around to that. You said you're managing everybody remote, and I just love everything about that because it's 20 freaking 23, and this is just the way I see things. I hope that we're on the same wavelength here, but you're managing 60 plus project managers and probably other team members who are then managing remotely. Help, like, this is a huge, big bubble that I'm trying to burst over here. I don't know if we're gonna be able to get to it all, but why are you remote? And let's just talk about some of the little things that are helping you keep everything organized for that.
yeah. Good question. We're remote for many reasons. I live on an 8-acre farm in the middle of nowhere, Vermont,
Love
and
it.
so it's very beneficial for me to be able to work remotely instead of getting on a plane and flying to Silicon Valley or Salt Lake City or New York City or anywhere else, right? So it started just with me being in a very rural area and trying to figure out, okay, how do I deliver services to folks that are really killing it,
Yeah.
right? And then I realized that there were a bunch of people like me in rural areas all over the country who actually don't have a lot of economic opportunity in the areas that they're in,
Yeah.
right? That's great for a Silicon Valley client or a New York City client because they're used to paying 300, 400 bucks an hour for the kind of quality that they're getting from our team, right? And then they're only paying like 125, 150 bucks an hour for that, right? So huge arbitrage there for these big companies in these really expensive areas. And also all of our consultants get the huge benefit of getting really, really big paychecks that their neighbors really aren't getting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's the remote thing. And then tools wise, honestly, we automate and document as much as we can, right? We're a project management shop. So like we have to eat our own, yeah,
Yeah.
eat the own dog food, right? Like we have to do it ourselves. And we question ourselves constantly like, hey, we did this for a customer the other day. How are we not doing this internally? Right.
Right.
And so we're constantly figuring out, okay, how do we put everything in the simplest way possible? How do we automate as much as possible so that we can communicate well while working in 60 different locations all over the country?
Yeah. A lot of opportunity here for us to dive into, but
Yeah.
you have 60 people who know how to manage projects, who probably are fairly organized or at least good discerners of information, right? Because they're helping other people do this thing. I can only imagine what it would be like to have that revelation of like, oh, we just did this for a customer the other day, but we're not doing it. And it almost feels like you guys would be in constant tweak mode. Do you ever
Oh
have
yeah.
to, is that true? And would you ever have to stifle, you know, innovation at all?
Oh my God. Yeah. Everyone has great ideas. And, the thing is, you have to have a decision making process at some point, right? And as a leader of the company, I get a lot of ideas that get bubbled up to me, and I have to discern, okay, is this something that we want to tackle? Or I pass that information down to my leaders and say, hey, is this something we want to tackle here? But it all comes back for us. We actually use objectives and key results to run our company. And so we have five key result objectives that we work on every single quarter. And if it's not on that list, then it gets put on a really good idea list, and then maybe it gets tackled next quarter.
Yeah. Yeah, and so even down to the little things that you might be doing for other folks that could be a great idea. What would be the negative? I guess there's probably people listening right now who are constantly thinking of new things, trying to always start new things. I'm trying really hard to get myself out of that box too. But as entrepreneurs, we like fun stuff. We like starting things. Tell us what
Yep.
the benefit of keeping those things away on that other list.
Yeah, well, one, you can stay focused on the stuff that's actually, you're really, really good at. Something that we realized really early is we actually got too wide at the beginning, right? We were trying to service too many clients. And we realized, hey, let's just get really good in these couple of verticals and deliver really, really good services for them. And when we realized that if we could stay super narrow, as long as it was going well in those spaces, we can pivot within those verticals. But at the end of the day, we stayed focused on it and didn't get distracted by the other things, right? And so that's the most important thing is pivot when it makes sense, if it's a small pivot, right? But then, make sure it's always going towards your North Star. And for us, OKRs are our North Star.
Okay. And so I want you to break this down for us a little bit because you might have a listener thinking right now, I mean, managing a project is managing a project, whether it's for medical or IT or a
Yep.
podcast. There's going
Yep.
to be steps, process, people, like all the general items. But what you're saying is that actually, no, when we dialed it down, we could be more specific, more precise, more valuable. How is that so?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, each of those companies is really, really complex. And within each of those companies, like you think about a healthcare company, for instance, they're using electronic medical records and they're using, ERPs that are specialized for healthcare companies. And they have to deal with things like HIPAA and, high trust certifications. And that stuff gets really complex. And if you try to come in and you have a project manager that hasn't worked in that space before, they're going to eat a lot. They're going to like cut some corner that they didn't even realize they were cutting, right? And then all of a sudden, they violated someone's HIPAA rights. And so it's really, really important to get experts in that specific field and just know what you're going to be an expert in, right? And just keep digging in. And again, I'm all for pivoting, right? It's really, really important to adjust, right?
Sure.
As entrepreneurs, we know that really well. But just making sure that you understand what your guardrails are is really important.
Yeah. And obviously I know that you're speaking from experience, but there was a pivot that you had that you made where before it was like okay and things were okay, but then when you made the pivot, things really took off. Tell us about that.
Yeah. There's a couple of things that were going on. We had a bunch of different companies that we were helping or trying to help. And then we realized that our messaging was very, very blurry, right? So we pivoted and we got a little bit narrower, right? And then we realized, okay, where's our talent? Where does our talent sit right now, right? So there were probably 20 of us at the beginning. And so we realized, okay, we broke it down. All right, we're really good at healthcare, really good at IT professional services. Let's stay there and get really, really good at that, and then move on from there.
Yeah.
Right. So it's all about just taking a step back, evaluating what's sitting in front of you right now, what you're really good at, and then adjusting just slightly, right? Taking little micro changes every single day until you get the right formula, and then you just keep pushing, put gas
Yeah.
on that fire once you get it right.
Yeah, there's real work in what you're talking about as far as like the distilling down of whether it be messaging or services. You get started and you feel like you know what you want to do, and you do for that level of enlightenment. That's kind of like the language I like to use. But eventually
Yeah.
you your enlightenment changes. And you have to go, okay, wow, this is wow, I'm serving too many people. I remember starting Gathering the Kings just a short 18, 19 months ago, and as a mastermind group. And it's like, well, wait a second, there are a lot of groups. Like, why is this one different? Why am I starting this one as opposed to just joining another one? And it's taken me a minute to really go, what is this thing? And luckily there's been people along the way that we've been creating great relationships with, and but that doesn't mean that somebody joining tomorrow isn't going to get a much clearer message. You know what I mean? Than
That's right.
19 months ago. Okay, so was there a key factor inside of this for you of paying attention? Like, I can only imagine just the story I just gave of not paying attention to the message and just keeping with it, just steady Eddie, just doing the same thing over and over. Like, what were you doing in the meantime to recognize, maybe this is different, maybe our messaging isn't as clear? Like, what were some of those indicators?
Yeah, good question. Well, COVID happened, so that was interesting,
Yeah.
right?
That's an interesting way to say it.
Luckily for us, COVID resulted in 1,700% growth. And it was really easy to say, wow, this is really scary. Like, I just started my company a year ago. Let me go back and work someplace else. Right. But we leaned in. I talked to my team. I trusted my team. And I said, hey, look, I think this is a great opportunity for us. Right. Like, what kind of changes can we make to really take advantage of this situation and help people get through this? And, for us, our values really drive all of our decision making at our company. If we're not helping a company or helping their clients, it doesn't go on the board. We don't do the work with that company. And so anyway, COVID happened and it really made us get focused on what services are we going to provide? How can we help people help their clients the best way possible? Right. And so we just kept digging in on that focus. Yeah.
What about COVID though? I mean, okay, so COVID
Yeah.
happens and we're sent home, and all the stuff. But like, what about that? I mean, you could have kept doing the same thing, but you didn't.
Yeah, we could have. COVID made us get narrower.
Yeah.
So we found that the industries that we were focusing on a bunch of industries, and then we got really narrow because there were a couple of industries, healthcare and IT, where tons of cuts were happening, right? Like in healthcare, couldn't go into the doctor anymore because they're fighting something else, right? And with IT, couldn't go on site anymore. So you had to do it remotely. And
Right.
so we got really, really big. So we found that those two verticals, and then throw in nonprofit that because they really needed some help and digital product, we started to see that like, okay, these verticals were really getting impacted by COVID and they need help doing things remotely. And we were a 100% remote company. And so we just filled in the gaps and taught all of our clients how to work remotely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's how I started the show, so we're gonna press into it again because
Yeah.
60 people across the country, all
Yeah.
remote. You gave us
Yeah.
you gave us the short answer of like there's some cool automations and we get to
Yeah.
help small communities, which is a great. I love the answer, but how are you doing it?
Yeah. Yep.
Like how the people management stuff. Let's dial in there. The
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. It's really hard. It's really hard. We picked our tools. We were very clear about how we were going to communicate, and we made sure that everyone followed that. And if people weren't following that, we'd work with them to figure out why they weren't following that. And maybe there was a better tool that we could use. Maybe there was some training that needed to happen. But at the end of the day, identifying your tools, saying this is the source of truth, and this is how we're going to communicate. That's it. Everything else you can figure out later, right? But you have to know how you're going to communicate with one another. And for us, we literally we put I had my entire calendar blocked out, like the entire thing, from my kids' soccer games to when I'm going to go on a run in the middle of the day to my personal time when you can text me versus the personal time when you can't text me. And we have this culture where there's full transparency, and that's the only way that I think we've been able to be successful at that scale.
Yeah. I mean, so that's a great kind of like we've done this to create an environment of winning. What's
Yeah.
been a challenge around remote, whether for you guys or for a good majority of your customers?
Biggest challenge is gaining trust with new customers quickly. It's very easy to walk into a room as a new person, as a new consultant, and make that face-to-face contact, handshake, read body language in the room.
Yeah.
It's much harder to do that remotely. And I don't think we've found a cure to that. What we've had to do is build that trust over a longer period of time.
Yeah.
So, I think that's the thing, is just setting expectations with the client. Say, hey, look, this is not going to be easy. And maybe even spending maybe taking a trip at the beginning to have a little bit of face time to build that trust. And we do get together as a team periodically to get a little bit of face time in person, because you can't replace that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's unique to build a relationship with somebody virtually. I can see you.
Yeah.
But when we're in person, it's different. And we know this, but we don't really know it until you've been doing it for a minute. And you're like, I know him, but do I know him? Yeah.
That's right. That's right. My favorite thing to do at conferences when I meet people for the first time is guess how tall they are, right?
Oh, yeah.
You've done it. You've experienced this, right? Where you get in there and you have the 6'4" person that just the same looking person as you are on the other side of the screen.
Yeah.
So
Yep. I've
it's
had
fun
that
stuff.
exact scenario happen. They're like, bro, like, yeah, I know.
That's
You
right.
would have never known. You can't see the legs,
Yeah.
but yeah. Okay, so tell us. There's this moment here. I'm setting you up here because I also want to bring some value to the listener, because I'm sure there's
Yeah.
people right now listening that have either some remote folks on their team, or maybe they're helping their customers in a remote fashion. So there's lots of value here. But for this moment where you've been doing the relationship virtually and then you meet in person, yeah, it's fun because one's taller, one's shorter, and you didn't realize the guy XYZ, right? But once you get
Yeah.
past that, what's then the value of that in person, even if it's just for a short time, now having the relationship already built virtually?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. It's really good. I mean, so we're very intentional when we do on-site work, and we really try to limit it because it's bad for the environment, costs a lot of money, all the reasons why, you shouldn't fly across the country.
Yeah.
But we try to find opportunities where we're going to mutually be traveling anyway, right? Like a conference or something like that. And then we really try to zero in on, okay, what are we going to do when we are in person? Right? Like, can we do a 2-hour session where we're whiteboarding these things, where it's really helpful to be in a room together and, use sticky notes to put things on the board and stuff. So we're very intentional about how we use that in-person time. And then we also try to find the value, we're always trying to improve, right? At the end of it, right? So doing things remotely, meet in person for a little bit, come back and say, hey, how could we have gotten more value out of that the next time around? And so we really try to plan that next trip where we're going to meet up and say, hey, we really should have had 4 hours to meet instead of 2 hours to meet, or let's do more than dinner next time. Let's try to really do a strategy session in person.
Yeah. Yeah. It always feels like you could do more in person.
Yeah.
But what I heard you say, tell me if I heard you wrong, is that in person, it's like you're reaching for the depths, right? Because, it's easier to go maybe surface level virtually. One of the very first things I told you, which I tell every single guest, is, hey, look, we're going to talk and it's going to be surface for a second, but forget all that because I'm going to try to go deep. It's just easier to do when you're in person. And so the whiteboard session or whatever it is that you guys are doing with sticky notes or whatnot, it's like what you're actually doing is pulling out the depths of the situation or the person or whatever, right?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And, the truth is that there's some really cool tools out there now, like Miro. You can whiteboard and sticky note just like you used to.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's a little bit easier because you're not bumping into each other while you're putting sticky notes on the wall, right?
Yeah.
Like you're just moving around the screen. So, that's some of the stuff that we've gotten better at over the past few years. I mean, most of our consultants have been management consultants that have always been remote. And so that's the value that a lot of our clients are getting is, hey, look, not only are we saving money, but you've been doing this for a while, right? And what was interesting was that a lot of these tools didn't exist. So we were doing it remotely with a Word document or I don't know, whatever. Just anything, just making things up on the fly and doing a screen share. And now these tools that exist like Miro and all these other things can do a lot of that stuff even better virtually. But so you do have to force yourself to dig deep, to your point, right?
Yeah.
And I think that what you can take advantage of when you're doing the things in person is doing some of that trust building that you didn't even realize that you didn't get by doing things virtually. You read a psychology book or sociology book about, how we interact as physical beings with each other in the same room versus on a computer screen. And
Yeah.
it's amazing the physiological differences, right? And
Oh, yeah.
so just trying to figure out, like, how do you take advantage of that stuff in
Yeah.
person? That's the good stuff. That's the reason why you do stuff in person.
Yeah. You know the number one thing
Yeah.
I try to take advantage of in person?
What's that?
The bro hug.
Uh, I love it. Yeah. I love a good hug. I usually stand back and I wait because I
Wait to
always
see if
want
it's
I want
coming.
the other person to feel I want the other person to feel comfortable. But yeah.
Yeah. I don't
It's good.
wait at all. In fact, I'm the guy that
Well,
is
good for you.
immediately I'm walking right up to you, handshake. But I will there's just a slight bit in there. Like as soon as we handshake, especially because I'm watching your hand. So if you're coming at me like
Yeah.
an actual handshake, I'm gonna handshake you. I'm still gonna lean in a little bit to see if you give it to me. But
That's right.
if you come at me like this, like
Yeah.
we're gonna do the actual clap and then pull in, all in right away.
Love it.
Because why
Love
not?
it.
Why
Yeah.
not? Life's too short.
I think I have a similar tactic. Yeah. I think you and me are probably about the same, Chaz.
Hey, kings and queens, Chaz Wolfe. I want to talk to you about something that's super important to me. We put a lot of time and effort, we meaning myself and my team, into this podcast, into the content that goes out every single day. And if you have been getting any sort of value or insight from this, we want it to be able to reach other business owners too. So we would love if you would like, comment, share, leave a review, post, share again, all of the things on social media, on all the different platforms, or even on the podcast mediums of Apple and Spotify. We would love to be able to get our content into more hands, more entrepreneurs, so they can grow their business as quick as possible. Together, we are building a community of like-minded entrepreneurs who are committed to growing their businesses to new heights. So let's do this. Let's help each other. Let's help each other grow. Yeah, dude. So I met my dad 12 years ago. He didn't know I existed. I thought somebody else was my dad. And I had this exact moment with him when we met for the first time. I'm like, I've had people ask me, did you shake your hand? Did you shake hand? Did you hug? Like, what was it like, And so I just
Yeah.
described everything that happened in that moment. It was like a shake of the hand. You lean in a little bit to see what's going to happen,
Yeah.
and then you do it or you don't. Either way, trying to be respectful
That's
here,
so cool.
but
That's awesome. I love it.
good stuff.
Love it.
Okay, so let's talk about you individually, purpose, why. This is normally how I start the shows, but you threw everything off today. 8-letter Alex.
Yeah.
Okay,
Love it.
which is fine.
Love it.
You're doing this for a reason. Doing this company for a reason. You're living your life this way for a reason. You're remote. I'm on acreage and have a farm too, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We won't tell anybody. But why are you doing this? Like, what's the burning deep down Alex reason that he wakes up every day?
Yeah. I feel a sense of purpose to, like, get out of bed every single day and make the world a better place. That sounds super cheesy, but, like, whether it's how I raise my kids, how I run my company, like how I pull together my running community, whatever. That's always what's driving me every single day. Just focusing specifically on the company. I restarted the company about 4 years ago. I actually started Tech Consulting Group a decade ago as an independent consultant. The same independent consultant that now works for me. I wanted to work on big projects. I wanted to work on Obamacare, right? And then because I wanted to affect change, and I joined a couple of those firms along the way, and I thought, oh, I'm going to change these big companies, and then I got inside, and I wasn't changing those big companies. It wasn't their fault. It was my. I mean, like I had unrealistic expectations about how I could change these firms.
Yeah.
So after the third one, I said, hey, look, I want to change this industry however I can, right? And so I'm doing it with 60 consultants right now, with a handful of clients, and doing what I can on the industry. But I wanted to increase the level of diversity in management consulting. I wanted to make management consulting accessible for small businesses. And I wanted to work with only customers that were having a net positive impact on our society, whether it was environmental, political, whatever. I wanted to work with companies that were doing that. And that was our barometer for whether or not we wanted to work with them. And it's nice now that we can say no to clients and we can walk away from clients that don't have that value alignment. And so that's what's really important, is figuring out, like, what's driving you as from a values perspective, and then getting your company to align around that.
Yeah. Yeah, you said a couple of
Cool.
things. You mentioned just different areas of your life that you're leading, and so I can see impact in you as a leader. But you also just had this innate desire to change, or to bring
Yeah,
change, or to bring impact. Where do you think that stems from? Was that given to you by a father figure or a mother figure, or
sure. Yeah, good question. Both of my parents grew up in very rural, poor areas. My dad was from northwestern Tennessee. My mom's from Cambodia. She's a refugee from Cambodia,
well,
left during the Khmer Rouge. So there's some resilience that's going on there for sure. What was cool was as a kid, both of my parents, all they wanted for me and my brother was to have a better life than they had. Neither of them went to college. They both worked in restaurants. They met in restaurants working together. They just wanted us to have a better life. They didn't even care. They didn't care if we made a bunch of money, although they thought that would be helpful. They just kept on encouraging us to be kind to other people and just have a better life. And, you know, that's driven both my brother and myself. For me, I wanted to provide service to my community. I actually started. I worked in finance. My parents, they didn't know what the heck they were doing. Right? They were raising a kid. They had never gone to college. They just told me to get straight A's and like try to do as best as I could. And so I did the first thing that would make me a bunch of money. I went into finance and worked in financial services, and then I was like, this is not the North Star that my parents taught me, right? Like they didn't want me
yeah,
just to make a bunch of money. They wanted me to do something that contributed to society in some way. So I left this job and started a nonprofit in Central America and did that for 4 years. So it's the childhood that I had and the faith that I had as a kid and the values that my parents instilled in me has carried through out my entire career with potentially a little exception right at the beginning of my career because I didn't know what I was doing. I thought that might have been part of the equation, the making money part. But then I realized like, oh, if I follow my values and I do the right thing, the money will come and the success will come. Right. And that's where we're at right now. It's pretty
yeah.
exciting.
Why do you
Yeah.
think that those things are attached? Like, why do you have such confidence that do the right thing first, and then the rest kind
Yeah.
of falls into place?
Well, I mean, I've seen it. I've seen it in my own life for sure. And then as I've started to study entrepreneurship and talk to other people that have had success, realize a lot of them, there's a couple of there are outliers where there's no value compass and they make a lot of money and they're successful that way. There are a few outliers, but those are exceptions from what I've been able to see. Like most of the folks that have been successful that are really making positive impact they're all values driven, right? Like to the core, whether it's how they treat their employees, whether it's the amount, the impact they have on the environment or socially or politically or whatever. There's always this positive impact that's driving them. And then they have success too, right? It's inspiring to people to have someone that's driven based on values, right? No one
Mm.
wants a bad guy leading, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I just really look up to the bad guy. He just
I know exactly.
really, really does it for me. Um, what do you think? I'm just imagining, the first off, winning or being successful, like it or not, does put a little bit of a target on your back because of maybe
Mhm.
some of those outliers, the bad apples, if you will. And so I'm sure
Sure.
you've been projected as, someone who maybe was taking advantage or, manipulating situations, as I'm sure every successful person has been challenged with. And so I guess my question to you is, how have you overcome those moments? Because I know that they've happened. They've happened for me for sure. When the target's on your back and maybe someone's coming at you, and it's not valid because you've been doing the right things. You've been trying to make a
Yeah.
real impact. You've been trying to help people, whatever it is. How do you overcome those?
It's interesting. I think there's two types of people that sort of do that. There are well-intentioned people that maybe just misunderstand, and there are people that are just trolling and they're, what are you going to do? Like you can't compete with that second type of person, right?
Yeah.
So, for us, there's going to be a hater. You just let them do that and, the only thing you do by engaging with that person is amplify their message more, right?
Yeah.
So with that second type of person, we usually acknowledge, check in with them and try to figure out if there's a goal that they have And if there isn't, then we move on. But for that first type of person that's well-intentioned, that's really trying to, I, I, I think they're driven based on their own values, right? And something that you're doing is challenging their view of the world and the values that they have. And so with those people, I really do try to dig in and try to understand, okay, how can we be better? Right. Because maybe we made a mistake, right? Like maybe we could be doing something a little bit better. And so we engage them and try to understand, is there some dialogue that we can have either for us to understand things better or maybe it's an improvement opportunity for us. So
Yeah. I
yeah.
like the just the maybe the purity of that, where it's,
Yeah.
you have somebody who, they don't really know, but in their own enlightenment, in their own frame, they see you being successful and it means something different to them than it does, to us. But that was a really good answer. I appreciate that. I'm going to transition here to family. You've mentioned family a couple times, and just the value of the kids and all that fun stuff. What is your thought, especially with you being 100% remote, especially with you having, some land and valuing, just some of those values that come along with land and family and stuff. You're all in on your business, obviously.
Sure.
The word that I have like a battle against, not really, but you get what I'm saying, is balance. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I just don't see it. In fact, it doesn't exist. The word obsession does, though, and you've been obsessed with your business, I can tell. And I can also see by some of your life choices that you've been obsessed with your family. How are you doing both? How are you obsessed with both and running and leading in your running
Yeah.
community? And like all these things, you're like all in on all of them. But how are you doing it all at the same time?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, and I love your podcast, by the way. And I have heard you talk about balance a lot, and I agree with you. I don't think there's any such thing as balance as much as it is like the symbiosis of everything that exists in your entire life.
Yeah.
My work like supplements my life, right? My family means more to me than anything. And as a project manager, I am very good at organizing each part of my life and being very intentional about time boxing every single piece of my life. And also even, taking into account potential risks and things that pop up and needing to adjust. And so for me, I, just make sure I get enough sleep. And then the 16, 17 hours a day that I'm awake, I'm running the nonprofit that I started or running the company that I work on or attending my kids' soccer or going to parent teacher meetings or doing whatever, teaching my kid how to do math. And I think that being very intentional and being a partner to my wife too, and figuring out, okay, how do we run this ship together in addition to all the things that she's working on and I'm working on. So really just trying to be intentional about boxing in every single hour and every single minute and realizing that that's the only thing, like that's the most limited resource we have, right?
Yeah.
So,
What I'm
yeah,
hearing you say is that in project management, it's
yeah,
obvious, like you bring order to it. But when we
that's
talk
right.
about our life, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that don't put me in a box, Alex.
Yeah,
Don't tell me to time block. I only get 3 minutes to brush my teeth, and then I gotta move on. Like don't pinch me in so close.
yeah,
But order is what you're saying has brought the ability then to be obsessed, or maybe the opportunity to go all in, right?
sure.
What would you say to the guy who's who's just fighting order, who's fighting,
Yeah.
everything that you teach your clients to do, which is to block time, to think ahead, to plan, to be organized, to be ordered.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. So I'm a project management consultant, but I actually am naturally not that organized,
Okay.
right? It's funny how, how we all
Oh
are,
yeah.
right? It's
Oh
like the
yeah.
mechanic that doesn't have their own, car
Yeah.
in order. But, the thing that you do really well professionally is usually the thing that you had to work on, right? So I think I can empathize with that. Like I hate getting boxed in
Yeah.
that way, but I do have a technique though that I use. So I do time boxing. You could look at my calendar and see like all the different colors and like how I have blocks for sales and marketing and client meetings and this, that, and the other. But even when I block sections for creativity and strategy.
Mhm.
And I block sections of time every single day. My wife and I both get 1 hour to exercise or do some sort of like mental wellness thing, whatever it is, right? So, we have these blocks and you can move those blocks around, right? Like if you're not feeling creative when you have creative time, move something, more solid, more technical into that block. And so even if you don't like being boxed in, you can just box in the time that can be moved around a little bit, right? And that does it for me. I love having the ability to move my run. If I'm feeling really good and I'm working on my OKRs and I'm feeling good about my strategy, I'm gonna throw that block in for another hour and then push my run towards a little bit later in the day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's more of a holistic list, if you will, as
Sure.
opposed to I must stop what I'm doing because the calendar says so. Now, I understand that there are some entrepreneurs listening right now where they don't even use a calendar.
Yeah.
And
That's
so,
scary. Use a calendar, please.
yeah,
Please use a calendar. I
thank you.
promise it's gonna help you.
Yeah, thank you. How to win 101 called Google, and not you searching something. It's your Google Calendar. And
Yeah.
there's pretty colors and all kinds of fun stuff to keep
Yeah.
your very scatterbrained entrepreneurial attention in one place. There's also
Right.
reminders and things that pop up and help you encourage you, sometimes strongly suggest, depending upon how many reminders you set. Okay, so we've given the listener this approach to how to win in not just business, but in my life, is to be orderly. Okay, fine, but I can move things around. That gives me flexibility,
Sure.
freedom. Really, I've heard you say it's autonomy, right?
Yep.
I can give
Yep.
myself freedom or autonomy by projecting out what I actually want and then sticking to it generally. I can move things around. There's flexibility there. But the autonomy piece starts always with ownership, because you have to first determine what it is that you want, or why are we even doing this? Which is, I mean, autonomy is not someone else telling you what to do. And
That's
so
right.
for you, being a person that helps other people, stay organized, and then of course now your clients, how does that look for an entrepreneur, maybe as opposed to their people? So I'm two angles here. As an entrepreneur, we still need to have autonomy. That's why we're entrepreneurs. But we still need to be orderly. We still need to use a calendar. We still need to, project out. But then our teams, maybe you can speak to this from your project managers. They need autonomy, but they need your vision. They need your structure to maybe work inside of. And that's different than how maybe you and I operate as an entrepreneur. Can you talk about this for a little bit?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, Chaz. I like that question a lot, and I do have an answer that, like, because obviously we're doing this on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
So, for my team, I'm a big fan of setting North Star, giving autonomy, right? Here are our processes. How do we improve them? The goal for this client is to do X, right? Go figure out how to do X within this box, and they're very good at that. I I'm pretty I'm pretty good at being self-motivated, right? And so I know that that's a strength of mine. And so I'm good at sitting down and saying, all right, I need to set my own personal, like I need to set that North Star for myself
Yeah.
and have that drive me. I know a lot of entrepreneurs that aren't that way. And one of the things they need help with is setting that. And so there's two things that I usually suggest there. One is, if there's internal folks or peers that you can talk to bounce ideas off of to get that North Star, do that. And then the other thing is, sometimes it's nice just to hire an assistant that can ask you the simple question of like, how do I set this? Right. And so for me, I have the discipline to sit down and then I bounce those ideas off of my peers, right? Because, whether my peers are internal and they're my teammates, my senior leaders on my team, or whether that's, Jay, who was on your show a few weeks ago, or other entrepreneurs.
Yeah. I think that's great. I think it gives, even just your distinction between the North Star and then go figure this out inside this box. Right. And
Yep.
I think it's actually great for the person listening right now. Of course, you gave a great box for the entrepreneur, but for them to be able to give to their people, because that's why they work for you, most likely, is
That's right.
because they don't want to create their own North Star. And then even inside of that conversation, you have different levels of autonomy desire for employees. That you've got a guy or a gal who doesn't necessarily want to start their own company, but they absolutely need autonomy. And so again, you set the North Star and you say, hey, here you go, have at it. All the way down
That's right.
to here's the exact 4 steps I need you to take in order to win
That's
in
right.
this position, right?
Yeah, but even that person that's down to the 4 steps, like I still want them to have a level of autonomy because no one wants to be told exactly what to do, right?
Exactly.
And so even if it's like how the order that they do those things,
Yeah.
right? That autonomy, or like, tell me how we can do this better. Can we
Yeah.
get it down to 3 steps? Like,
Yeah.
how's this going to work for you, and how can you spread that knowledge that you've created with other people on the team?
Yeah. My first business is a franchise. And so, a lot of just, we'd cut fruit, dip it in chocolate, put it out in a basket. It's not that hard. And so you have a pretty low level of autonomy. It's on top of that, it's a franchise. And so it literally, there's a video telling you how to do it step by step. And so,
That's right.
okay, but inside of that, what I learned for even that maybe entry level position or that individual who just likes that type of low tenacity level work is that they can just be themselves. Maybe they don't want to recreate your 4 steps into 3, although maybe they do. They just want to be them. They don't want to be you. They want to be their personality, especially
That's right.
if if we're talking about entrepreneur, profiles like you and me, where it's just like,
Yeah,
we're charging the hill hard. And it's like, that's
that's
probably
right.
not them. And they want to probably just do those 4 steps how they see those 4 steps being done. Right.
Beautiful. Love it. Love it. Yeah.
All right. I've got one last question here for you. I'm going to digress this whole thing. You've just been, a joyful conversation here. But if you had a chance to reach back into time and whisper in the younger Alex's ear, what would you tell him?
Biggest lesson I learned restarting this company 4 years ago, was that I needed to stop worrying about the vanity metrics. And I'm not even saying, like, no one on my team even cares about the vanity behind it. But when I say vanity metrics, I mean number of employees versus contractors, like revenue numbers, all these things. You're not doing it for anyone else,
Yeah.
but yourself and your team, right? And so I'd go back and tell Alex, hey, look, don't worry about what other people think success looks like. Listen and learn from other people, and take the nuggets that make sense for you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Do you think that the impact of that on younger Alex would have given you patience, poise, a different perspective? Like, what would have been the deposit afterwards if you had known that before?
I probably have less gray hair right now. No, I'm kidding. No, I think knowing that earlier, I think I wouldn't have only helped, younger Alex. I would have actually helped a lot of my teammates too. When you're growing a company as quickly as we have been, when you go from employee number 2 to employee number 6, 8, 13 over 8 months, that's stressful for everyone, not just Alex, right? But like his whole team. And, you know, people lose that touch, that personal connection that they had with the leader of this company and being a part of something bigger. And so you have to be really intentional as you grow, right? Like you can grow that fast from an employee standpoint, but it has to be right for your company, right? And you have to think about how it's going to impact everything there. So, for me, that was the big learning, is just that it wasn't the right growth for my company at that time.
Yeah, I mean, now we're back into the podcast. Here you go, messing up my flow again. I love
I
it. I love
know.
it. The the angle of it's not the right growth for my business, or I mean, you have somebody listening right now that's like, well,
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to grow. I can't figure out how to grow. And here you
Yeah.
are talking about it's not the right growth for me. And it
Mhm.
seems as if like, well, wait a second, what are you talking about? Don't we want to grow? Isn't that why you're in business? And from the outside, yes, but what are you saying underneath that?
Yeah. There are a lot of different ways to grow, right? That's really what I'm saying is, okay, you're a services organization, right? Do you grow with contractors who want to experience that growth and don't want the drama of being in a company that's growing that fast? Does revenue really matter? Do profits matter for you? Like,
Right.
does cash flow matter for you? Like, there's a bunch of different things that come with growth. And when you grow too fast, cash flow will be your biggest challenge, right? And it just disappears, right? Clients don't pay on time all the time, but you do. And so anyway, just thinking about, what the right growth is for you. I was on Zap Connect. It was Zapier's annual conference. And I think it was the founder of OpenAI. He said he has a bet with his buddies about when the first billion-dollar company is going to be run by a single person.
Yeah.
Right. And so for that company, they don't need any employees, right? They need some contractors and a lot of automations, right? And so it's all about doing the right thing for your company. And the only way you're going to figure that out is doing those two things that we talked about earlier, right? Like relying on other people that are smart at what they do and setting your North Star.
Yeah. Clear as it comes. Okay. You've given us more than what we asked for, which is always a treat. I would suggest that the listener goes back and listens to this a couple of times because you've given many angles, sometimes in the same sentence, my man. Okay. How can they find you? Number one, if they're in any of the verticals, and maybe say them again, that you service, if they need a project management option, or two, they're just an entrepreneur, they want to connect with you. How do they find you?
Yep. So first of all, the four verticals: healthcare, IT professional services, nonprofit, and digital products. Honestly, I'm gonna give you my phone number too, right? Text me if you want. Phone number is 802-372-1377. You can text me. LinkedIn is a big way to find me. And you can always go to the website, tuckconsultinggroup.com.
Love it. Love it. You've been not only just incredible, but a joy. That's a couple times I've said that now. You're smiling. I'm smiling. I'm going to have to I don't smile that often. I got to, work out the smiling muscles. You got me working out over here. But we wish you blessing on your business, of course, your family, all the things that you're touching, all the people across the country that you got working with you. Thanks for being here, man.
Yeah. Thanks, Chaz.
Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.